Yesterday in our class in 2.3, we finished up all the factoring, right? Factoring's not done. We're going to talk about on the next page when we start solving equations. But we've got to know how to factor. Before we move on to our solving equations, though, we're going to look at how do factors relate to zeros. You guys remember what zeros are? Zeros of a function? I don't know. It's a good vocab word to know. Okay, it pops up randomly on testing or whatever. But when we talk, so this graph here shows the function y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. So as expected, it's a parabola. And they give us a little bit of information here. You'll notice they talk about the x-intercepts here. Okay, so the question becomes, how do the zeros relate to the factors of the expression? So let's talk about if we take x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, so let's talk about what are the factors of x squared plus 2x minus 8. What are my factors there? Review from yesterday, right? Is there a GCF? Is there a GCF? No? Okay. Because it's just an x squared, what can we go ahead and jump into? 2 parentheses, yes? And those parentheses, x squared, breaks into x and x. What do we need these numbers to do? Remind me. Okay. Product of -8, a sum of 2. What works? What multiplies to be 8? 4 and 2. What kind of 4 and 2?
Positive 4 and negative 2.
Okay, if it multiplies to be negative, one's positive, one's negative. If it adds to be a positive, bigger number positive. So positive 4 and negative 2. Now, these right here, okay, these right here are what we call our factors. Okay, x plus 4 is a factor. X plus 2 is a, x minus 2 is a factor. Now, how do they relate to the zeros? Well, okay. What are my x-intercepts here? X-intercepts are -4 and positive 2, yes? So let's talk about x-intercepts. So my x-intercepts, according to the graph, are -4, 0, and 2, 0. Well, are you starting to see a connection? Okay, there's a connection there. There's some of the same numbers. Now, with that in mind, when we are looking at this equation, okay, if we look at the factored equation, the y equals x plus 4 and x minus 2. In both cases, what happens when you put those x values into the equation? You put those x values into the equation. Well, it's going to cancel out and your equation is going to work out to be 0, yes? And so I want to put that in writing. So if we use if I use x equals -4, first of all. If I put -4 in for x, and it's supposed to be in for both x's, I just spaced it here. So if we put in -4 for x, what happens there? -4 plus 4 is 0. -4 minus 2 is -6. And 0 times -6 is 0, yes? Thus an x-intercept. do it with the other one. The other one is x equals 2. And again, I'm just trying to get to a connection point here. If we put 2 in, we're going to be doing 2 plus 4 and 2 minus 2. When I put that 2 in, 2 plus 4 or 2 minus 2, what do we end up with there? 2 plus 4 is 6. 2 minus 2 is 0, and 6 times 0 is 0. In both cases, what did negative 4 and 2 also both do? They made my equation equal 0, yes? Thus, negative 4 and 2 are my zeros. So, all of this tie back together is that x-intercepts were negative 4 and 2. Zeros are also negative 4 and 2. Okay? So the connection, when we talk about zeros, when we talk about x-intercepts, they're the same thing. Okay? If you see a standardized test problem ask you about zeros, realize they're asking you for x-intercepts. They're asking you for the solutions to the equations. There's a couple different ways they can do it, but x-intercepts, what I need you to connect is that x-intercepts is the same idea of zeros. Okay? A 0 is the x value that makes y equal 0. And that's what we showed there. Okay? Okay. Now, moving along with that idea, we're going to go solve some equations. This is the big part of our day. You got all your factoring skills in place from yesterday? As we turn over and look at solving quadratic equations by factoring, so using those skills from yesterday, notice it mentions something called the zero product property. And the zero product property states that if a product of real number factors is 0, then at least one of the factors must be 0. What do we know about two things that multiply to equal 0? If two things multiply to equal 0, then one of them must be 0, yes? Okay, because that's how we multiply to get 0. One of the numbers has to be 0. So zero product property says, so for instance, if a times b equals 0, one of those has to be 0. Either a has to be 0 or b has to be 0. And that's the idea we use once we get these factored, is we're going to look at setting each factor equal to 0. And I'm guessing that seems familiar to you. Okay, so factoring skills from yesterday, but we're solving. With this first one, solving the equations by factoring, x squared plus x equals 42. Thoughts or memories of where we begin? What do you remember or what do you guess? What has to happen before we can factor? Can I factor it the way it is? Why not? Can I factor with an equal sign in the middle? No, what do we need to do? We need to get all of this on one side, or what you're going to hear me talk about lots today is we need to make our equation equal to 0. Anytime you're solving a quadratic, the general rule of thumb is we make the equation equal to 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract my 42 over to the other side, and I will have x squared plus x minus 42 equals 0. That's going to be your first stop every time you see an equal sign. Make that equation equal to 0. Now, okay, take over factoring from yesterday. First question, is there a GCF? No? Help me out, guys. No GCF, so what do we do to factor? We can automatically set up Two parentheses. What do we know about these two parentheses? X squared has to break into x and x. And then, okay, remind me, what kind of numbers do I need? Two numbers that give me a product of negative 42. And they give me a sum of what?
1.
The invisible 1. Now, I keep telling you guys, I'm going to show you the process because while this pair may or may not be obvious to you, you're going to eventually run into some pair that's not obvious to you. So go through and list your options. What are my products of 42? Not how I meant to write that. One times what is 42?
42.
42. 2 times what is 42?
21.
21. 3 times what is 42? 14. 4 times what is 42? A decimal. 5 times what is 42? 6 times what is 42?
7. 6.
How old are we? Okay. Now, with this in mind, which pair works?
6.
Okay. Somehow, this didn't come to light in first hour. This wasn't pointed out to me in first hour. So there must be something about this class.
It is.
Okay. What kind of signs do I use to make my 6 and my 7 work?
Negative 6 and positive 7.
Okay. If they multiply to be a negative, I want one negative, one positive. If they add to be positive 1, we need the bigger number positive. So put those into your parentheses. X minus 6 times x plus 7. Am I done? I'm not done, am I? Okay. I factored, but there's an equal sign in this equation, which means I need to go till I get x equals. What's the step we do here? We have our two factors. X minus 6 times x plus 7 equals 0. What's the zero product property says? If two pieces multiply to equal 0, then one of them has to be 0, yes? So we're going to set each factor equal to 0. I'm going to set x minus 6 equal to 0 and x plus 7 equal to 0. Okay? Solve each of those. If it's x minus 6, I'm going to add 6 and x equals 6. If it's x plus 7, I'm going to subtract 7 and x equals negative 7. So I have two solutions of 6 and negative 7. Now, Savas is probably going off the top of my head, Savas is probably going to have you do a comma between the numbers. Okay, it'll be number, comma, number. Beware, the common mistake is to find our factors and stop. Now, does it relate to the factors? Most often it's just the opposite signs, isn't it? And you can use that to your advantage, but make sure you understand the process of setting each part equal to 0. Okay, questions on that one? Okay. Let's try the next one then. 2x squared equals negative 9x plus 5. Thoughts on what to do?
No GCF.
Okay. Well, we can't talk GCF yet.
You gotta make it equal to 0.
Okay, we have to have everything on the same side of the equation before we talk GCF. Now, make it equal to 0. I don't know, there's options. What are our options for making this equal to 0?
You can subtract 2x squared over.
Okay, one option is to subtract the 2x squared. Now, if we do that, we're going to have negative 2x squared, right? And you'll learn real quick, I don't like to have a negative out front when I'm factoring. So if you do that, that's fine. I'm going to say your next step is to multiply through by a negative 1. Because I don't want to have a negative out front. Okay? And that's fine. What's the other option?
Add 9x and subtract 5x.
Okay? And I know a lot of people are like, wait, we're moving 2 terms? That's what I tend to do on this one, only because I want to keep my positive 2x squared. Does that make sense? Okay? So you normally take the option of, I'm going to move the 9x and the 5 over. Again, as I said, if you'd rather go the other way with this, that's fine. Okay? So I'm going to add 9x and subtract 5. When I do that, I'm now at 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 equals 0. Okay? If you went the other way and you're at negative 2x squared minus 9x plus 5, my suggestion is you multiply through by a negative, or divide by a negative, or factor out a negative, something along those lines. Okay. Now, let's revisit the GCF question. Is there a GCF? Nothing in common. Okay, how are we going to factor then? What do you want to do?
Flip the side.
Okay. There's no GCF. I've got a 2 on that x squared. I have an a value. You have to learn to recognize this is where we're going to slip inside. We're going to take this 2 out front and we're going to slip it over to our c value. Okay. With that in mind, I now have x squared plus 9x minus 10 equals 0. Now that you've gotten that 2 out from out front, now we're ready to factor, yes? X squared breaks into x and x. What kind of numbers do I need? A product of negative 10 and a sum of 9. What numbers give me a product of 10? 1 and 10 or 2 and 5? Which pair works here? 1 and 10 is the pair that's going to have to work. If I'm multiplying to get a negative, one of each, right? One positive, one negative, and how are we going to make this work? It's going to be a positive 10 because 9 is positive, so we want the bigger number positive. Fill them in. X minus 1 and x plus 10. What?
So now we have to divide by 2.
Okay, now we have to divide by 2, yes? I don't know if it's this problem or a different problem, but I forgot to divide by 2 this morning. I started to move on to my next step, okay? You have to remember, if you're doing slip and slide method, if you move that 2 over and multiply it in, you have to divide it out now. So we're going to divide both of these terms by the 2 that I had moved over. Now, in the first one, x minus 1, 1 divided by 2, does that reduce? It does not. So this 2 is just going to move back over. And this is so I can have a proper factor here. So it's 2x minus 1. On the second factor, 10 divided by 2? 5. So this just becomes x plus 5. Okay, so now we've got our 2 factors. Am I done? No. What do we have to do to actually solve? Okay, we're going to set each factor equal to 0. And I'm going to go over here to do this. So I'm going to set, my BenQ is doing weird things. 2x minus 1 equal to 0, and x plus 5 equal to 0. If it's 2x minus 1, I'm going to add 1. 2x equals 1. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and x is 1/2. Over here, if it's x plus 5, we're going to subtract 5, and x is -5. We end up with 2 answers. Okay? Okay. Are we seeing how the factoring yesterday is getting used, right? Okay. In homework, you'll have to be careful. Sometimes you'll just be factoring a problem. If there's just an expression, no equal sign, just factor it and put it into your 2 factors or whatever. If there's an equal sign in the problem, realize you're going to be going farther and you're going to be figuring out x equals what. Okay? Okay. Moving on. X squared plus 8x minus 3 equals 17. What are you doing first? Before I can factor this, I need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to take my positive 17 and I'm going to subtract it to move it to the other side. X squared plus 8x minus 3 minus 17 is going to be minus 20. Okay. Is there GCF? We want there to be one, but there's not, is there? Okay, so we need a product of my C value, -20, and a sum of my B value, which is 8. Okay. Again, if you're not just seeing which pairs, make a list, right? I always start with 20. I'm always going to start with 1. 1 and itself, right? 1 times 20 is 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times nothing. 4 times 5 is 20. And then if I go to 5, I've already used 5, so my pair's got to be there somewhere. Which pair could possibly get me that sum of 8? Okay, 2 and 10. Figure out your signs. If it's multiplying to be a negative, one of each, a positive and a negative. Which way are we making this happen? Yeah, positive 10, negative 2, positive 10 because 8's positive, so larger number is positive. Okay, set them up. X squared is always going to break into 2 parentheses. X and X. One of my parentheses is going to be X minus 2. The other one is X plus 10. Do I stop there? Are negative 2 and 10 my answers? No. Set each factor equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. X plus 10 equals 0. So if it's X minus 2, I'm going to add 2. X is 2. If it's X plus 10, I'm going to subtract 10. And X is negative 10. Okay? Make sure you go all the way. Okay? One more in this section. 2x squared equals 3x plus 2. What's step 1? Okay. Somehow or another, make it equal 0. Okay? As I said, I like to move, if my x squared term is already positive, I like to move things to join it. That's my personal way of teaching it. I don't know how other people have taught it, but that's what I like to do. So positive 3x is I'm going to subtract 3x. Positive 2 says I'm going to subtract 2. So I'm going to subtract 3x and 2 on both sides. So on the left now, 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 0. Is there a GCF? No. No GCF? What am I doing? Okay, I've got that a value. I've got that number in front of x squared. So we're going to take that 2, and we're going to slip it to the end here. So now we're just going to have x squared minus 3x. 2 times negative 2 makes it minus 4 equals 0. And two parentheses, right? X squared is x times x. What do I need to happen? Product of the c value, negative 4, a sum of negative 3. What works? I mean, multiplying to be 4 is 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Which pair do I have to use to get 3? One times 4. How do I multiply to be negative and add to be negative? Bigger number has to be negative, right? I think every example today has pretty much been multiplying to be a negative, so hopefully we have that down. Okay, put them in your parentheses. X plus 1, x minus 4. Now what? Which step did you do next?
Divide. Oh,
Okay, it's slip and slide, right? This is why I made you guys answer me on this one, because it's so easy to forget, isn't it? Okay, you move the 2 over, now we have to move it back out. So you've got to remember to divide that by that 2. And it is so easy to forget. I will be the first to state that. X plus 1/2. 1/2 doesn't reduce, does it? So move that 2 back out front for 2x plus 1. X minus 4 over 2. 4 divided by 2 becomes what? X minus 2. Set each factor equal to 0 now. Now I will take that step. 2x plus 1 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. So, if it's 2x plus 1, subtract 1. 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. X equals negative 1/2. Or x equals 2. Okay. I know some of you may be saying, oh, well, I had x plus 1/2 here earlier. I should have just set that equal to 0. It's not that you can't. However, I'm trying to practice proper factoring. I need you guys to make sure you have it in proper factored form. And factoring doesn't have fractions in it. Okay? Okay. That's old news, right? We're using the factoring to now solve equations. A big thing we do with quadratics. Okay. And this is where, since I've gotten this far, I'm going to tell you, you can do a lot of the homework. The problems to avoid right now would be the various types of word problems. We have two different types of problems that were, two different types of problems that we haven't talked about yet. Other than that, you're going to see a lot of factoring and solving equations on homework. You can do those now. Okay? Now, let's look at the bottom of this page. We've been working with quadratics, these parabolas, right? Parabolas lend themselves to a lot of word problems. When you throw a ball up, how high did the ball go? Okay? Projectile, when you launch a rocket up, how high did it go? When did it land? Things like that. Okay? So this one here, a multi-level driving range, has 3 levels. Marco hits golf balls from the second level, which is 32 feet high. The height of a ball, x seconds after Marco hits it, is modeled by the function h of x. When does the ball hit the ground? Okay, so look at what we have here. The height of a ball is modeled by this function here, okay? And notice the 32 feet they mentioned, it's already in the equation. You're not doing anything with that. That's just extra information right there. But the height of a ball is modeled by this. They want to know, when does the ball hit the ground? What do you know about the ball when it hits the ground? What? Yeah. This equation talks about the height of a ball, yes? So if the equation talks about the height of the ball, what's the height when it hits the ground? It's 0. So when they talk about the ball hitting the ground, we're going to take the height, which is h of x, and we're going to set it equal to 0. Okay? And then we will be trying to figure out when, and it's x seconds is what we're looking at. So set your equation up. Negative 16 x squared plus 16x plus 32 equals 0. Now, there's some good news here. It looks ugly, but I promise it's not. First of all, does my equation equal 0? It already equals 0. What's usually my first question then when factoring? Greatest common factor. Is there one? Definitely. That's going to make this problem 100% easier. What is my GCF? Go one step farther. I want to use negative 16. And I don't know, maybe someone said that, but because, and again, you'll learn this about me the more we do this year, I like my lead term to be a positive. So I'm going to factor that negative out. So we're going to factor a GCF of negative 16 out. Negative 16x squared divided by negative 16 is x squared. What about 16x divided by negative 16? Minus x. And 32 divided by negative 16? Minus 2. And then equals 0. Okay, keep going. We've got the GCF out of the way. The nice part is this is now just x squared, isn't it? So I'm just going to keep that negative 16 out. But now I can factor into 2 parentheses. X squared breaks into x times x. What do you got going for numbers?
Negative 2 and positive 1.
Okay. Negative 2, positive 1, because I needed a product of negative 2 and a sum of negative 1. Well, the only way to multiply to get 2 is 1 times 2. So we don't have choice. We don't have a lot of choices here. With the negatives, it's positive 1, negative 2. Okay, now what? We've got it factored, so officially the rule is take each factor and set it equal to 0. Now, about this negative 16. I'm going to show something, but then I'll tell you what you can do next time. Okay, we'll go ahead and set negative 16 equal to 0 so we can talk about it. X minus 2 equal to 0. And x plus 1 equal to 0. And here's the idea. If you multiply three things together and you get 0, one of them has to be 0, right? Now, what about negative 16 equals 0? Is there even a variable there to solve for? No. If you had a GCF, that just ends up being indifferent. You don't need to think anything about it. And in fact, because it was an equation, we could have divided it away. Okay? So, okay, solve each of these, get your two answers. We're going to have answers of what? X equals 2 and x equals negative 1. When does the ball hit the ground? What does x represent? What kind of answers are these? These are x seconds. When does the ball hit the ground? 2 seconds? What about the negative 1? Okay, can time be negative? No. So negative 1 just ends up being an extra solution. It's not a wrong solution. We're just not going to use it because it was negative. So we're only going to end up using the 2. Does that make sense? Okay. So officially, the ball hits the ground 2 seconds after Marco hits it. That's officially how we can answer this problem. The ball hits the ground 2 seconds after Marco hits it. I don't know about you guys, but that seems a lot more reasonable than that water balloon being in the air for 10 seconds the other day. Okay, guys, this word problem we just did, it was words. I know, words are big, bad, and scary in math class. However, was it any more difficult than any other problem we've done today? No. Okay, especially once we got that GCF out of there. Okay, let's look at the other one here. A baseball is thrown from the upper deck of a stadium 128 feet above the ground. The function h of x gives the height of the ball x seconds after it was thrown. How long will it take the ball to reach the ground? Does it sound familiar? Instead of hitting a golf ball, we're throwing a baseball. Okay? Now, with this in mind, we're given a function, h of x, and that represents the height of the ball, x seconds after it is thrown. How long will it take the ball to reach the ground? What are we thinking here? When will the ball reach the ground? When what is true of the height? The height is 0. Okay. So right here, you're looking for the height to be 0. So set your equation equal to 0. Negative 16x squared plus 32x plus 128 equals 0. Okay. Take a guess what's going to happen. Even if you don't have a calculator out, take a guess. GCF of?
16, negative 16.
Negative 16 again. You already know 16 goes into 16. You already know 16 goes into 32. The unknown, does 16 go into 128? It does. So, Factor out GCF of negative 16. I'm left with, I'll take the first one, x squared. 32x divided by negative 16 is minus 2x. 128 divided by negative 16. How many 16s are there?
8.
8. Okay. And there you go. I almost feel like we've even already factored this today. Maybe not, but I don't know. All the numbers start to blur together. So negative 16 out front. Because it's just x squared, we can go ahead and go straight to x times x, right? Did you figure out your numbers? I need numbers that are going to multiply to be
8.
negative 8 and add to be negative 2. Well, what multiplies to be 8? 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. Which pair works? 2 and 4. How do they work?
Negative 4 probably.
Yeah, if they multiply to be negative, 1's negative. If they add to be negative, bigger number's negative. Plus 2, minus 4. And what's my finishing touch? Set each factor equal to 0. Negative 16 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. Now, what do we know about negative 16 equals 0? It doesn't matter. There's no variables. It doesn't matter. We could have divided the negative 16 out. Forget about it. If it's x plus 2, I'm going to subtract 2. If it's x minus 4, we're going to add 4. And I get solutions of negative 2 and positive 4. How long will it take the ball to reach the ground?
4 seconds.
4 seconds. What about the negative 2? We're not going to talk negative 2 seconds for the ball to reach the ground. We're not going to go back in time. So again, that one's a no-go because it is a negative. So the ball will reach the ground 4 seconds after it is thrown. Okay. Questions there? Okay. That's going to be our stopping point for today. We're one problem ahead of my morning class, which we were one problem ahead of them when we started today too, so it's all good. That's going to be a stopping point. As I said, if you're wanting to get a start on homework and you don't want to have to wait, there's only one type of problem we haven't talked about how to do yet, and that is when you have to write an equation of a parabola and they give you x-intercepts and a point. We'll talk about those tomorrow, and if we only have those two, I don't see why you won't have some work time tomorrow. Okay?